Hi, my name is Carmen Concepcion. This is my final assignment for Leadership in Technology. I am really shocked that this past 8 weeks has gone by as fast as it did. I've learned a lot and I've been inspired by a lot of the material that we've gone over and that I've researched. I'm going to take the next few minutes and try to sell you on my technology plan. The sole purpose of my plan is to kind of communicate why adopting podcast into the school environment is going to be super beneficial. And there's a lot of benefits that I talk about in my communication plan. And some of those include, first off, they're really beneficial for teachers in the sense that they make a typical lesson plan not so typical. They're really great for auditory learners, or specifically for students that might have some visual impairments. They're strikingly intriguing for students that may find a typical lecture really boring. There's been plenty of times when I've sat in front of my classroom and, my students don't necessarily pay attention. And they also allow students to take information on a particular subject from many different perspectives, especially from podcasts that have different special guests. They're really, you can get a lot of perspectives and, So my communication plan really explains it all. It has some really great implementation goals, I believe, such as podcasts being implemented in every subject's curriculum. So math, science, health, reading, etc. Basically, you can find podcasts on any of those topics or subjects. The goal is to have a podcast implementation that is fully completed by the end of the first semester of the school year. So if we were going to start it beginning of this school year by Christmas break. Students will be able to listen to podcasts that apply to their topic of learning, and they'll be able to interpret and analyze the information that they hear. They will be able to answer multiple choice comprehension questions, complete written assignments, and write analysis essays to prove that they have an understanding of the material that they just listened to. In order to implement these podcasts, I believe that teachers should and will be provided with implementation programs in which they learn how to use different digital platforms and technological devices that will kind of help them easily implement the podcast into their lesson plans. They'll be provided with technological devices in which they can record themselves and present their podcast to their students. In order to ensure implementation efficiency, I think the best way would be to have a technological coordinator who will be there to provide answers to any questions on any of the technological devices, digital platforms, or be able to assist with any technical difficulties that may arise. There will be a written outline that will be available to all executioners of the podcast, so teachers and staff, and it will clearly define how the implementation will work, the process, and the requirements and the resources that will be provided. There will be an administrative project coordinator that will be in charge of every single aspect of the implementation, which I also think makes it really great that there's so much support with this process. They will provide answers to all the questions that teachers may have. They will oversee the analyzation of the data that will be taken from the podcast and the surveys at the end. I'll go over them. So another point I want to hit is that in order to measure effectiveness of these podcasts, the students will be required to interpret the information that they hear and complete final assessments. The assessments will then be graded and they will be used to take data on, and the data will express whether or not the students are obtaining the information. At the end of each quarter, the teachers will be required to complete a survey. This survey will ask the teachers what their dislikes and likes were of the podcast implementation, whether they believe that it helped their students or not, and whether the resources provided were fitting towards the curriculum. The students will also have to take a survey that it's kind of like the same thing. It'll ask them their likes and their dislikes. It will ask them if they think that the podcast were beneficial in any way. If, they would prefer to keep them in, their day-to-day educational environment, or if they think that there's another educational technique that they would prefer. So yeah, that's basically, the outline of how my implementation process would go. I personally think it would be super beneficial because it's clean, it's precise. I think I've hit in all the points that, all the points of questions that may be asked during implementation. I specifically like that I would offer some sort of assistive coordinator who will help out with the implementation process, because I think that a lot of things get implemented into school environments and there's not really anyone to precisely help them. So yeah, thank you for listening. I'm sorry if I went over time, but I hope that this gives you a little bit more of an insight on what I was thinking behind the process. So